The battle was long over, but the silence that followed felt heavier than the explosions had been. The red sands of the alien moon still smoked, and pieces of metal glowed faintly in the twilight. Among the ruins walked Eli Graves, a human field medic who had stayed behind after the evacuation. His mission was not over. Somewhere out there was a life worth saving. He moved carefully between the wrecked machines, his boots leaving deep prints in the dust. His wrist scanner blinked faint green, faint but steady. A heartbeat. Someone was alive. He followed the signal until he saw her. A tall figure lay half buried under a fallen engine wing. Her armor was cracked, her silver hair tangled with dust and sparks of blood-red sand. Even half-conscious, she radiated authority. Her face was marked with faint violet lines that glowed under the dim light. She was Commander Siren Vale, one of the alien variants who had fought both humans and their own civil war. When Eli knelt beside her, her eyes snapped open sharp, golden, proud. She tried to lift her hand, but the armor hissed and locked her arm in place. "Don't lay a hand on me," she whispered, her voice hoarse but still commanding. "Human, I don't need your pity." Eli smiled faintly. "Good thing I'm not offering pity. I'm offering treatment." Her glare could have burned through steel, but he didn't move away. He knew that pride. He had seen it before soldiers who would rather die than show weakness. He set down his pack, ignoring the way her tail twitched in warning. He spoke softly, more to the air than to her. "You're losing blood. Armor's fused into the bone. If I don't pull you out now, you'll never stand again." "I said no," she hissed. "I fought your kind for years." "I will not, yeah," he cut in gently. "You fought well. That's why I'm not leaving you here." He braced himself against the wreckage and lifted. The metal screamed as it gave way. She winced but bit down on the sound. Eli saw her effort and respected it. When the last piece fell aside, he reached out his hand. She didn't take it. "Don't," she warned again. He smiled, quiet and steady. Too late. He placed his hand lightly on her shoulder to keep her from collapsing as he pulled her free. Her body trembled with exhaustion, but she didn't resist anymore. For a second, their eyes met her golden glare against his tired human blue. She saw no mockery there, only stubborn calm. When she was clear of the wreck, he guided her to a patch of unburned sand. The night wind carried the smell of metal and ozone. He pulled out a small healing unit, its blue light flickering in the dust. "Your people will kill you for touching me," she muttered. "They can stand in line," he said softly. "I'm busy keeping you alive." He worked in silence, sealing wounds, cooling burned skin with the soft hum of nanogel. She turned her face away, watching the shattered horizon. Finally, she spoke. "Why?" "Because I can," Eli answered simply. "That's what humans do. We fix what's broken, even if it hates us for it." A strange look crossed her face. Not anger. Not yet trust. Something else, confusion. Maybe respect. The hours passed slowly. By dawn, the twin suns rose over the horizon, painting the sand gold. The battlefield looked almost peaceful now. Eli stood, stretching his sore arms. "You'll be fine by tomorrow. Rest. The rescue shuttle should pass within a day." Siren stared at him. "You risked your life to save your enemy. You think that makes you noble?" He shrugged. "No, just human." She looked down at her hands, once so strong, now trembling. "My people don't understand mercy. Then maybe it's time someone showed them," he said, smiling again. She frowned, as if unsure how to answer. "If I live, they will ask how I survived. They'll call it weakness." "Tell them the truth," he replied. "Tell them a full human wouldn't take no for an answer." For the first time, she gave a small, reluctant smile. "You are strange creatures." "Yeah," Eli said, picking up his gear. "But we try." As the day brightened, he checked his scanner again. The signal beacon was faint but active. Help was coming. He turned to leave, but her voice stopped him. "Graves," she said quietly. He looked back. "You disobeyed me." He smiled again, that same calm smile he'd worn from the start. "I know." She studied him for a long moment, then whispered, "Thank you." The words were soft, but they carried weight. More than gratitude, something like the beginning of trust. He nodded once and started toward the ridge, his silhouette small against the blazing twin suns. Behind him, Siren lay still, staring at the sky that had almost claimed her. For the first time in her life, she wondered what it meant to be saved, not out of duty, but out of compassion. The desert wind blew over the wreckage, erasing the tracks he had left. Only the faint echo of his smile remained in her mind. She had told him not to touch her. He had done it anyway, gently, bravely, as a healer, not a conqueror. And now, the proud commander of a broken army could not forget the warmth of that single human act. When Commander Siren Vale opened her eyes again, the ceiling above her glowed in soft white light. The smell of sterile air and faint humming told her she was inside a medbay. Her body felt light, but her chest tightened with a strange mix of shame and confusion. The last thing she remembered was the human Eli Graves, lifting her from the wreck, his calm eyes meeting hers, his steady voice saying she would live. Now she was surrounded by her own people. 3 Varian officers stood nearby, their pale armor polished, their faces unreadable. "She is awake," one of them said sharply. Siren tried to rise, but the medband across her chest kept her still. "Where are we?" "Rescue ship Alara," the officer replied. "We found you 20 hours ago. You were badly injured." Siren looked around, realizing something was missing. "And the human?" The officers exchanged glances. "Gone," another said. "We found human footprints near you, but no body. You were alone when we arrived." Her throat tightened. "Alone? No, that wasn't true." She remembered his hand guiding her, his words steady under the howling wind. "What became of him?" She asked quietly. "We don't know," came the flat answer. "But he saved your life." Strange behavior for a human. They left her to rest, but the silence of the medbay was heavier than before. Siren stared at the soft pulse of the healing lights, each flicker echoing his smile in her memory. That night, she couldn't sleep. She replayed every moment, her pride, her refusal, his quiet persistence. He hadn't argued, hadn't forced her. He had simply refused to abandon her. "Don't lay a hand on me," she had said. And he had disobeyed, not in arrogance, but in kindness. When the ship landed on the orbital station above the desert moon, reporters and officers filled the dock. Siren stood straight, her armor repaired, her medals returned. The air was full of voices praising her survival, yet all she heard were hollow words. A general approached, his expression proud. "Commander Vale, your return is a victory for the Varian cause." She saluted but said nothing. "We must prepare a public address," the general continued. "You will speak of your courage, how you fought until the end and endured alone until rescue." "Alone?" she repeated softly. "Yes," he said, not noticing the edge in her tone. "The idea that a Varian commander survived on her own strengthens our legend. You understand." Siren's eyes darkened. "And if I tell the truth?" The general frowned. "Truth does not serve the cause, Commander." She looked at him steadily. "Then perhaps the cause has forgotten what it means to be alive." He blinked, unsettled, but before he could reply, she walked away. Later that day, Siren found her way to the human sector of the station. It was quieter here. Small rooms filled with laughter, shared meals, and the scent of oil and coffee. Humans greeted her politely but curiously. Her tall frame and glowing eyes drew stares, but no fear. She found the medical wing, searching through records. It took hours, but finally she saw his name, Eli Graves, listed as field medic, status, missing, presumed alive. A breath she didn't realize she was holding escaped her lips. She asked the clerk, "Do you know where he went after the evacuation?" The clerk smiled faintly. He signed on to another rescue detail. He said there were still people left down there. "Down there?" she repeated, shocked. "The desert is poisoned now." "Not for him, apparently," the clerk said. That night, Siren stood by the viewing window overlooking the moon's red surface. She could still see the scars of battle, still imagine the place where he had pulled her from the wreck. Against her better judgment, she requested a small shuttle dot the next morning. The shuttle descended through the dusty atmosphere. The surface was silent except for the whisper of wind. She stepped out wearing a light exosuit, her boots sinking into familiar sand. For hours she searched, through the same ruins, the same twisted metal, the same broken memories Dot had lost. She found a small tent built from human supply sheets. Inside, faint light flickered from a heater. And there he was. Eli sat near a transmitter, fixing a drone. His clothes were worn, his face tired, but when he looked up and saw her, he smiled as if he had expected her all along. "You made it," he said simply. "You're alive," she replied. "Mostly," he said, brushing dust from his hands. "I had a few others to help before leaving. Couldn't go without checking." She looked around. There were small crates, a few empty water packs, signs of someone who had chosen to stay when he could have left. "You could have died here," she said quietly. "Maybe," he said, still smiling, "but I didn't." For a long time, they stood in silence. The wind moved softly around them, carrying grains of gold dust that shimmered in the sun. Finally, Siren spoke. "My people want me to lie. They want me to say I survived alone." Eli didn't look surprised. "That sounds about right." "I told them no," she said. "I told them a human saved me." He turned toward her, studying her expression. "That might not make you popular." "I don't care about being popular," she said, her voice firm. "I care about being true." He nodded slowly. "Then you're more human than you think." She frowned, then laughed softly, a rare, almost musical sound. "You humans are strange. You heal your enemies. You risk everything for people who tell you not to." He chuckled. "We call that being stubborn." They sat together near the tent, watching the twin suns set again over the dunes. The same place where he had saved her life now felt different, quieter, almost peaceful. Siren turned toward him. "Eli, when I told you not to lay a hand on me, you disobeyed." He grinned. "You noticed." "I was angry then," she said softly. "Not because you touched me, because you made me feel something I didn't understand." "Mercy." He said nothing, just listened. "My people believe strength means never needing anyone," she continued. "But maybe true strength is knowing when to accept help." Eli smiled faintly. "That's what I've been trying to teach people for years." A small silence fell between them, gentle and warm. "Will you go back?" he asked. "Yes," she said, "but not the same as before. I'll tell them what really happened. That a human medic saved me. That compassion isn't weakness." He looked at her with quiet pride. "That's the hardest fight of all, changing hearts." "I think you've already started," she said. The last rays of sunlight touched the horizon, painting their faces gold. For the first time, Siren felt peace, not as a soldier, but as a living being who had been saved and changed by a simple act of kindness. When she stood to leave, she extended her hand. "You disobeyed my order once," she said with a small smile. "Now I give you a new one. Come with me." Eli laughed softly. "You sure your people are ready for that?" "They will be," she said, "because I'll make sure they see who you truly are." He looked at her hand, then took it. The moment their palms met, it wasn't an act of command or defiance. It was understanding. Together, they walked toward the shuttle, two figures. from different worlds bound by something neither army had ever taught them: compassion. As they rose through the thin atmosphere, Siren looked down at the sands below, where pride had nearly killed her and a human's gentle stubbornness had saved her. She turned to Eli and said quietly, "When I told you not to lay a hand on me, I didn't know that hand would be the one to pull me back to life." He smiled, eyes warm and steady. "Told you, we humans are persistent." The stars stretched out before them, endless and bright. And in that silence between worlds, both of them knew this was not the end, but the beginning of something greater. The first fragile bridge between two distant hearts, human and Varian alike.